If you want to increase your speed on bass, you have to improve your technique. In this lesson, we're going to take a deep dive into strength and stamina, coordination, accuracy, economy of motion, what to do with your fingers, fingering and plucking patterns, and some specialized techniques. I have 5 exercises. We'll look at the first one now. I know what you're thinking. That looks impossible. That looks too difficult. And that really is the first thing to talk about when we're talking about speed and technique, is to break it down and to slow it down. We are practicing economy of motion and correct movements in your hands. It's all about building up the muscle memory. So don't be too freaked out at what these look and sound like. This is the first bit. So I'm on the 12th fret of the D string. And there's a technique there. This is called rolling, where I'm using the tip of my first finger on the D, 12th fret of D string, and just rolling down onto the 12th fret of the G string, playing that first crease of that finger behind that knuckle there. Then I can introduce something you certainly know, which is 1 finger per fret. So in this shape that I'm in here, I'm using fingers 1, 3, and 4 on the G string. This tab here, you can download the PDF by following the link below and just sit down and figure this out yourself. So that's 1 finger per fret, and with my right hand, my plucking hand, I'm just going index, middle, all the way. You don't always do that, but this is an exercise where to get that speed, we're doing that. Index, middle, the whole way. There's always a finger in the future. Whether you're plucking or whether you're fretting, the finger is already hovering, waiting to pluck or fret the next note. So with this, that first finger's taking care of that. But watch how the third finger is ready and waiting with this relaxed hand position, trying to keep a gap between the fingers. It's there, ready to play the 14th fret. And then the little finger also is there. The frets are a bit narrower up here, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get that little finger in there. For me, it certainly is the finger that wants to leave the fretboard more than the others. But what you want to do is try to keep the fingers as close to the fretboard as possible. Your fingers may not behave very well if you're beginning or coming back to bass after a while away, but aim for that. Equally with the plucking hand, I'm going index, middle, and look how the index is ready and waiting. As soon as the index has plucked the first note, it's on its way to play the next. That's what I mean by economy of motion. You watch, my favorite tennis player of all time, Roger Federer. You watch the way he used to play, and it was just, he was always there a step ahead and just it didn't look like he was doing much. And all the greatest exponents of sport or music are the same. It looks easy, but it's hours of work. When we go to this bit here, we have extended fingering, where I am now going out of a 4 fret span. 4 frets I can cover 1 finger per fret, but now got to move a little bit. So let's just break this down. You've got fret 10. I'll say fret numbers. I think it might be easier for this lesson. So 10 and 10. And again, that's that rolling technique. This time, the second finger is on the 12th fret and the little finger is on the 14th fret. The numbers underneath the notes are telling you the finger numbers. That's extended fingering. It's actually the first finger that is coming out of that 1 finger per fret sort of thing and stretching out. I have to stop here because, word of warning, these exercises, especially in any exercise when you're trying to increase speed and strength and stamina, can cause pain in your hands, your wrists, and your fingers. If in a practice session you're feeling like that, especially if it's sort of a tendon type thing, not blisters, but like, your muscles feel a bit off, then you have to stop for that practice session and don't go through the pain barrier. That way will lead to tendinitis and repetitive strain injuries. So you do have to be careful with this. Especially these exercises in this lesson, they require a bit of a stretch, so be careful with that. Make sure you're holding your bass properly. Later on in the lesson, I'll address if you have injuries or small hands or arthritis. or something like that. But for now, let's continue. The plucking pattern is exactly the same. Index, middle, index, all the way. If you just go 2 frets lower and do exactly the same pattern, fingering pattern, you've got the next bit. Technique is about starting really, really slowly. That's why that was the other warning, is don't get freaked out by me playing this fast now or looking at the music and being overwhelmed by 16th notes. It all looks a bit much, but all you have to do is just slow it down. I'll introduce a drum loop now. Most of what I'm going to show in this lesson is going to be without any kind of timing source like a metronome and a drum loop. But it's fun to use, and also that's part of what we're learning here. It doesn't sound good unless it's in time, and as bass players we're very concerned with playing the groove in time. So here's a 120 beats per minute drum loop playing this over it. It's going to be quite fast, but I'm also going to show you a trick. I won't go through the whole exercise slowing it down, but that's what you heard me do there, just half the speed each time. It gives you a challenge, also it gives you a benchmark. That's 120 beats per minute. Can you play 16th notes at that tempo? If not, you find the place that you can, and then you write it down in your practice journal, and you now have a place to move beyond. I stole the first bit of Jaco Pastorius's Teen Town for this next exercise, which is focusing on what to do with your fingers, specifically plucking hand. There's a couple of things you can do with the fretting hand. Here it is slowed down. Just that bit of the line. Focusing on the fretting hand, which is my left hand. In this case, we've got first finger and octaves. So I've got the first finger on the C and the little finger ready and waiting for the next C. That's that economy of motion thing, always having a finger ready. Now, the B flat, I can use my second finger if I want. And we're returning to this C with the first finger quite a few times. So have that just there. Then the little finger plays the G on the 5th fret. So root 5, flat 7 octave pattern here. But you can also bar your first finger. So a little bit like that rolling thing we did earlier. Your first finger plays the C as normal. And now it's like that second crease. You're playing the 3rd fret B flat on the G string. My hand is really not leaving the fretboard. When you're playing fast passages on the bass, you have to keep your fingers close. A lot of that is how you hold the bass. I don't have a strap when I play this bass. That's more kind of force of habit and really than anything else. If you practice standing up or sitting down with a strap or whatever, you've got a neck heavy bass, do what works for you, but make sure you're holding the bass so that you don't have to grab hold of the neck. That's a big no-no. If you're grabbing hold of the neck so it doesn't move, then you don't have the fluidity and the accuracy that you need. So do what you need to do with your setup. If we focus on the plucking hand, that's the I and the M on the diagram there. It's a similar thing, octaves. The shorter finger is playing the A string, and there's that longer middle finger ready and waiting for the octave C. It can be quick if you've got fingers ready on both hands. This index finger is just taking care of the A string. and the middle finger is taking care of the other strings. Slowing it down, 3, 4, 1. A huge part of bass technique is remaining relaxed. You know, focusing on your shoulders, not tightening up, your hands, your wrists, and breathing properly. When you're playing something difficult, you tend to tense up, and that just gets in the way of everything. Also, aim for a light touch, because if you're playing fast and you're digging in too hard, you're not going to be able to fly around as much. That's related to your touch. I think there's nothing wrong with doing this, which is just different tempos of it. So slowing it down. There are fitness practices that do this where you just go slow for a bit and then sprint for a bit, you know, high intensity interval training. Think about that when you're playing the bass. Yes, I like metronome work, drum loop work to keep it time, but also you can do this. You're working on mechanics, you're working on the correct movements. I'm also muting here. There's a lesson right here on muting if you need that, by the way. Let me just quickly address having small hands or injury or arthritis. One thing you can do if you've got smaller hands, don't use that as an excuse. Do work on your technique, the stretch between your fingers, etc., without hurting yourself. But you can use a short scale bass or a medium scale bass. This is a 34-inch scale bass, which is sort of normal and standard. But 30-inch is short scale and 32-inch is medium scale. And that can really help you. Equally, if you have some sort of a hand injury or arthritis, you do what you have to do. Leland Sklar, one of my favorite ever bass players, he had a few, I think, machine shop injuries where I don't know what finger he can't use, but he's impaired a little bit. Listen to him play it and there's no impairment going on. He uses glissandos, slides, and his playing is just wonderful. And he has adapted his injuries to his way of playing. And there are many examples of guitarists and bass players who are like that, actually. So just do what you can do. If you can't use all 4 fingers, you might have to do a little bit of shifting around. Don't worry too much about that. Just do what you can do. Here's a 2-octave G major arpeggio exercise, and here we are focusing on something bass players do a lot, and that's shifting. We have to move from there to here. Let me slow it down. Now this is in 3/4. There are a few crazy time signatures in this lesson, and it's really nothing more than just fitting in a pattern, really. So let me slow this down. So we've got fingers. This is important to look at the fingering pattern here. 2-1. Then already off the bat we have a shift. And I'm aiming for the 5th fret of the A string, 2nd finger again. There's that rolling technique again, this time using the 2nd finger. Then I'm in position to play fingers 1 and 4 on frets 4 and 7. If I'm explaining this too quickly, don't forget that you have that tab just in the link below. And that's an almighty shift. We're going from fret 7, little finger, all the way to the 12th. And even that movement just there between those 2 notes might present a problem. So you isolate that and you practice it. Repetition is everything. There are a couple of things you could do on the way back down. The way I've notated it, 4, 3, 1, fingers here. And the same again, 4, 3, 1. Or you can roll with 1 finger. And this is tricky. First finger on the 7th fret of the E string, shifting to 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the E string. Awkward. And this is just suggested. This is the way I'm suggesting to do it. If you find another way that you like, do it. I found something quite interesting here. I played this 3/4 bass line to a 4/4 drum beat, and it sounds pretty cool. Listen to this. You get this rhythmic displacement, which was quite fun to play along to. You saw me shifting all over the place there, but this isn't really at all a normal bass line. You're not going to be playing this in a bass line setting, but you know, you might do all kinds of things where you will require that kind of jump. So it's a good exercise for hand shifting. This is probably the most complicated, complex looking thing I've written in hundreds of YouTube lessons on this channel. But it's not that bad. I didn't even realize this was in 5/8. I just got a pattern together just to come up with an exercise for this. And I just played that. I didn't even know that it was 5/8. When I notated it, I realized it was. We have a G major arpeggio here, and there's a hammer on from the first note to the second note. It's a major seventh to a root. Everything lies very nicely under the fingers here, one finger per fret. So we have a hammer on, 2 plucks, and a hammer on. And then on the way back down, all plucked. And that gives you a 5/8 figure, and you do that twice. One, two, three, 4 or 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each of those can be split up into 16ths. Then G7, it's exactly the same shape as this, except that first finger playing the major seventh is now playing a minor seventh. Everything else stays the same. Up the octave it's there. So it's fingers 1 to 2. Bit of a stretch there. Back in position now. Thumb's just at the back of the neck, roughly behind the second finger. You don't have to get a ruler out or anything. It's just all roughly there. Hammer on again at the top. This is a bit tough. We've got a little shift to the E. An E minor 7 arpeggio. Hammer on between the first and little fingers. That's the difficult thing to do. The hammer on is just maybe an inch above the string, curling that finger. It's quite rigid. Don't collapse it. And you have to make that sound as loud as your plucked sound. You might need to work on that a bit. And again, we need that stretch. We need that hand position to work here. That's all in position. But then here, you have to come out of position. And I've recommended fingers 2 to 4. You can use fingers 3 to 4. For me, that's a worse stretch than that. So I'm recommending 2 to 4. Then E flat major 7. It's exactly the same as this up here. Just here. 5th fret to 6th fret. I'll play the whole thing together. And you can repeat it as you like. That was the tempo I'm quite comfortable with now. You take it as slow as you need and build it up to as fast as you can. Massively struggling with that speed there. But that would be me just going and practicing, maybe programming in a 5/8 metronome if I really wanted to, building up the speed. In the interests of not making this lesson a monster epic one, I'm going to just introduce the last thing quite quickly. It's legato technique. And this really refers to hammer-ons and pull-offs and slides with the left hand where you get things like, I don't know, this. The first finger just plucked once here. And the other hand did a series of hammer-ons and pull-offs. And you can get really fast things in bass. Obviously, how would you use this? Maybe if you're playing a solo, certainly some lines you could be doing legato, like that kind of thing. You can use this exactly how you want. There's another strange thing going on here. We have a 2/4 and a quintuplet. I promise you, I didn't mean to put any of these things in. I just sat down at my bass and went, that sounds good. And then when I transcribed it for you, I realized it was this strange. Let's go through it. We'll go bar by bar, and it's the same notes as the very first exercise. That one. We'll start here. So we've got frets 8, 10, and 12, and it's easier just to say fret numbers. The first finger is plucking once, or the second finger, whatever you want to do. We have 2 hammer-ons, so we've got fingers 1, 2, and 4. You keep the first finger down, you hammer on to the second finger, and then immediately onto the little finger in one go. And then in reverse, you pull off. So when you're pulling off, all fingers are touching the notes now. The little finger flicks the string down. The second finger flicks the string down. That's how I like to teach it and how I like to play it. With a flick, that's how you generate a sound. Trills, all this kind of... Then you hammer on to the next note again. And then you follow and do the same thing. That will give you an idea on your own thing. You can do all pull-offs. Slides as well. If you want a lesson on legato and other kind of tricks, like this kind of thing, let me know. I think it's too much for this one lesson now. This is a book I've written called Creative Bass Technique Exercises, and that's got 70 musical sounding exercises a bit like this that will help you if you're interested. I've made 5 bass guitar courses, but I haven't done a technique one. I absolutely love technique. I love teaching technique. I love working on techniques, and yet I haven't done a course on it. If you want one, put a comment below, let me know, or more lessons like this. I think technique equals freedom. The more that you can play without worrying or hurting in any way, you can express any idea you have, and I think it's really important for that fact. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next lesson.